Welcome to Conversations with Zaki Baruti, your host, Zaki Baruti. Before we begin the program, as always, I'd like to give a shout out to my family, my biological family, the UAPO, Universal African Peoples Organization family, as well as New Life Evangelistic Center family. Special shout out to those who behind the camera, Bill and Bob and James, and just to you, the listening audience. Want to encourage you to let your friends and family know that Conversations with Zaki Baruti is on at 11 p.m. Saturday night. So for tonight's program, we have we'll be having an outstanding show. Got a great guest that's in studio with me. And his name is Aziz Azim. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing fantastic, and it's just the other way around, but that's okay. Azim Aziz.
Oh, Azim Aziz.
But I've been called much worse, so that's okay.
Good. All right, forgive me for that. So, my brother Aziz, share, for each of our programs, we always like to get a little background of the person who's on the program. Tell us about your background, where you grew up at and, some of the influences on your life and what have you.
Certainly. So I grew up right here in St. Louis, hometown boy, went to Sumner High School, and came out of there in '83. And I never forget, after I graduated high school, my father told me, he said, boy, you need to go to school and study computers. So not having a clue and just listen to my dad, that's what I did. So I went to school to study IT. And I've been doing that ever since. So I own a small computer business. I help people make use of technology, help businesses computerize, install security cameras, and alarm systems.
So what is the name of your business?
It's AAA Computer Solutions, AAA Computer Solutions.
And how long you been doing that?
So I actually started that in 1999. When I first started out, I was a coder. I used to write code for a lot of big companies around town, AT&T, Sprint, places like that, and did that for a number of years. And after my job was outsourced to places like India and Bangladesh numerous times, I kind of got fed up, and I started my own business at that time. That would be in 1999.
So one other question in terms of growing up, can you relate to some of the real positive influences on your life, people? Share a couple of people.
So I would have to say that the two biggest positive influences on my life would have to have been my parents. I can, my mother, God rest her soul, I can still hear her telling me right now to hold your head up and be proud of who you are. And, nothing in this life comes easy. Whatever you get, you have to work hard for it. So my parents, my mother and my father, instilled that into me in a very young age. And I thank God for them. My mom has passed, but my dad's, he's 84 years old, and I help to take care of him now. Yeah, absolutely. And it's a blessing for me to be able to do a little bit to assist him at this point.
Well, changing subjects, just most recently, I think within the last 3 or 4 weeks, that you had the audacity to put together a press conference around a real critical issue that impact our community. In fact, it's around the issue of crime that plagues our community. Share with the audience the circumstance of the press conference, and why did you call the press conference?
So that was around the brutal attack of one of our young Shining Star students, a 12-year-old student. She was brutally attacked on her way to school. She was abducted and held for a few days in an abandoned building, not too far from my ward where I live. And thankfully, she was later found alive, and she's got a long road to recovery. But that whole incident, just when I first heard of it, I was just horrified and sad. And just very soon after that, I became extremely angry that one of our children could be attacked in this manner. I was talking to some of my neighbors, and we were like, we have to do something. So that's how this kind of, that whole press conference came out, and the idea for us to start some neighborhood patrols. Because, Zaki, I have a daughter. And, one of the best ways that I can protect my daughter is to protect other people's daughter. And so I felt compelled to do something, however small it may be, to try to help my community to heal from this and go forward in a positive direction.
What kind of participation, when you called the press conference, of course, you weren't by yourself, what kind of participation did you get from people in the community?
So, actually, one of the first people I called was UAPO. We've worked
Which
together.
is Universal African People's
Absolutely.
Organization.
Yeah, you and I, we've been working together for quite a few years. And I called quite a number of other people in the neighborhood, just residents, local business owners. And the response was overwhelmingly wanting to know what they can do to help. So when we decided to call the press conference, we decided to start the neighborhood patrols first. So we started the neighborhood patrols, and our idea was to do that until this perpetrator was caught or until the end of the school year. So we did start the neighborhood patrols, and they are ongoing now, but the perpetrator was caught, and I just hope that he is the correct person that's responsible for this crime.
And again, just to recap the press conference, I think there were at least 3 objectives for the press conference. We review those.
So the objective was to announce the neighborhood patrols and to highlight the problem of abandoned buildings that we have here in St. Louis. And during the neighborhood patrols, and as I campaigning, I'm running for alderman in the 1st Ward, and as I do a lot of campaigning, just knocking doors, it's disturbing to see the number of abandoned buildings. And it's even more disturbing to see the number of unsecured abandoned buildings, unfortunately waiting for a tragedy. So I spend a lot of time when I come across those abandoned buildings to report that to the city so that they can get secured.
Well, we're going to continue our discussion on the flip side of our break. So we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back discussing the vacant buildings and what could be done.
Absolutely.
We were kicked out and left to live on the streets. I called the hotline, which St. Louis City has this wonderful hotline to call, and I kept getting the word that, sorry, no vacancies, nothing available. And I called day and night.
There's a lot of people that are homeless, might be struggling with health issues, and it's a lot better for us to have somewhere to go to be, comfortable.
I really wish this place would not shut down, because it is the only place that is available for people to go. I know the city says that there's other places, but I know for a fact that when you call the housing resource line, they just don't have anything available 98% of the time.
Most of us are 1 to 2 paychecks from being right here, right at the place that God has put it on your heart to allow people to come. And I've been fed bodily, but more than that, my soul has been nourished. My mind has been nourished with the Word of God and the Word of the Lord. And I have a renewed hope, a renewed vision that I don't know why God put me here, but He put me here, and I'm learning, and I'm able to help other people.
Really would appreciate if this place got left open, because I'll tell you, there isn't no place better than coming here and living, because I felt so blessed by having people who love me and care for me and worry about the things that I do and what happens to me. I didn't have that out in the outside world. I've got it here.
Your spare change could help spare a life, save a life right now. Send your gift straight in to P.O. Box 473, St. Louis, Missouri. It's 63166. Or you can even give online at www.newlifeevangelisticcenter.org.
Have circumstances turned your life upside down to the extent you are hungry for change, angry about the situation, lonely, tired? Then before you move ahead and make the wrong decision, you need to halt, pray, and let your faith be renewed by reading the Word. As 2 Peter 1 verses 3 and 4 says, His divine power has given us everything we need for life and godliness through our knowledge of Him who called us by His own glory and goodness. Through these scriptures, He's given us His grand and marvelous promises. Through them, you may drink in His divine nature and escape the desires and corruption of a sinful world. Call 314-421 3020. We'll pray with you today.
Welcome back to Conversations with Zaki Baruti, and in studio with me is Azim Aziz.
Yes, sir.
A activist in our community, one of the, I like to say, unsung heroes that been out in the trenches trying to make a difference in our community. On the flip side of our break, we were discussing some of the problems that you have seen in the First Ward, and I do believe that that's not just relevant to the First Ward, but all across the city, and that's vacant buildings. Now, you made mention on the other side that you're a candidate for alderperson in the First Ward.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
What is the boundaries of the First Ward in the city of St. Louis? And again, and share with us, why are you running for that particular position? And what are the duties of an alderman?
Certainly. So the boundaries of the First Ward are roughly between Martin Luther King and West Florissant, in between Union and Euclid. Those are the rough boundaries. It makes a few turns, but those are the rough boundaries. And the duty of the alderman is to create legislation for the ward and for the city, and to galvanize and be a leader for the ward to go forward in a positive direction.
So why are you running then? I mean, we already have an alderman in the First Ward, so why are you seeking that office?
So I think the most important part of the aldermanic position is to be a leader and galvanize the community to move forward in a positive direction. You have to have a plan, because if you don't have a plan to do something, then most likely nothing would get done. It's just like filling your car up with gas, and if you don't have a destination, well, wherever you end up when you run out of gas is good enough because you weren't going anywhere in the beginning. And that's unfortunately, I think that's kind of what's happening in the First Ward. We don't have a plan, so we're just driving around aimlessly. And that's what I want to change. I want to bring some leadership there and create a plan to move us forward in a positive direction.
Well, then, let's talk about your plan then. On the issue of vacant buildings, which can harbor, predators,
right,
which can harbor homeless people, because we're here at the Center, New Life Evangelistic Center, that helps homeless. So how would, as alderman, you deal with that particular issue as a model?
I'll address that, and then I'll go back and give you the overall plan, because I think we have to take a holistic approach to this, as opposed to trying to just like a whack-a-mole deal with problems as they pop up. If you have a plan, you kind of foresee problems and deal with it holistically. But for as vacant buildings, and you mentioned the New Life Center here, the vacant buildings could be used to be rehabbed, and you can teach people how to do that, and you can house people who are down on their luck and need shelter. So that could be multiple things that you can resolve, jobs and economic development, and providing safe housing for homeless or other people that need it. But that's part of a holistic plan. We have to deal with the problems of crime and security. And if you're taking care of vacant buildings, you're helping to deal with the problem of security. I think we should consider having foot patrols for the police, foot and bike patrols in our neighborhoods, and address those vacant buildings issues. That's definitely an issue. And we have to create jobs and economic development. And one of the things we need to do with that is create incubators, business incubators, and teach people how to have the proper business skills. And if they want to have entrepreneurial activity, or give them the skills so that they can do that. That's part of the responsibility of a leader, to make sure those type of things happen.
So with that said, then, in terms of going back as the newly elected or the next alderman out of the First Ward,
yes,
what would be priority one for you?
Priority number one would be safety and security. And
when you speak of safety, safety for whom?
Safety for the young people in the ward, for the elderly in the ward, and for the working people in the ward. Safety for the entire ward. We have to reduce crime. People have to feel safe to go to work and return. People have to feel safe to go to school and return. So that's just the beginning of just a stable family life. And we have to create that environment so that we can thrive.
So would you say then in the first ward have a serious crime situation going on?
It has a crime issue that needs to be addressed and resolved, and we need a plan for doing that, and there is none right now.
Okay then. Now, turning to, so you're seeking to be an alderman, which would be one of 28, and I think in the next few years that's going to be reduced to at least 14.
Yes.
But at the helm of the city, which is the mayor, the executive office, many aldermen have to work with the mayor. And, you know, we have a real intense election that's taking place. You have Republican candidates for the March 7th primary. We have a number of Democratic candidates, as well as we have a Green Party candidate, and we have the independent candidacy of Reverend Rice. Let's just take a look at the Democratic primary at this juncture. The major people that's or the front runners would include Lyda Crewson, who I hate to say that, Louis Reed, Antonio French, and Tashara Jones. What do you think are the key elements that people are to be expecting out of a candidate, you know, when they get ready to go to the polls and choose
That's an excellent question. What you need to expect out of any elected official is that he addresses your needs and concerns. As a business owner, I have to address the needs and concerns of my clients. And I think that as constituents, you should expect the same thing from your elected officials. So that's what we should pose that question to anybody that wants to represent you as an elected official. How are you going to address my needs and my concern? And if they can't give you an adequate answer for that, and if they don't have a track record for doing that in the past, then maybe you should consider other options.
Well, then my follow-up question would be, I would deal with that question on the flip side of our break, so we'll deal with that coming back.
Evangelistic Center, because when I lost my apartment, coming to New Life gave me a place to stay so I didn't have to be homeless, and I am really grateful for that because it's helped me a lot.
I was homeless and didn't have any place to go, and they took me in and they fed me. They gave me a warm bed to sleep in, a hot shower, and I'm thankful to God for that.
I'm here at NLEC, and I'm looking for a future. Instead of just being homeless, I'm looking for direction and a future in my life.
I heard about New Life Ministries from the hospital. They called and spoke with one of the workers here and were able to get me in. This shelter provided me not just somewhere to live, but they provided me with the support that I needed. And for that, I'm thankful.
Homeless lives matter! 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 Homeless lives matter!
Hello, my name is Maxine Johnson. I fought against eminent domain. My mother with 6 children trying to take my property. Pastor Rice was the only media that covered the story. The American newspaper didn't cover it. Let me tell you something about Pastor Rice. 3 weeks ago, I had a man call me at 2 o'clock in the morning, 5 degrees. They kicked out of her house, need a place to stay. Pastor Rice, Larry Rice Shelter was the only shelter open during the midnight hours.
Only shelter.
Right now, this is what we are doing. 90% of the people are black folks, look like me. We need to keep this building open.
Homeless life matter. Louder. Homeless life matter. Can't hear you. 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 Homeless life matter. Homeless life matter.
Welcome back to Conversations with Zaki Baruti, and in studio with me is my good brother Azim Aziz, forgive me. You know, I always like to put Aziz
That's okay.
first.
Just don't call me late for dinner.
All right, then. You know, on the flip side, I was going to pose the question around voting. You know, historically, there have been people such as Medgar Evers, who was with the NAACP, who had been murdered in Mississippi trying to get black people registered to vote.
Right.
You've had the assassination of Dr. King and countless other people who have probably been killed and brutalized. And I could recall in the last mayoral election, there was only about 19% of the total registered voters that turned out to vote. Right now, we have over 192,000 registered voters in the city of St. Louis. Address the whole issue of why people should vote. I mean, what is the? Some people say, hey, voting is not going to make a difference. How do you respond to that, and why is voting important?
So I'll never forget that in Barack Obama's first presidential campaign, in the city of St. Louis, approximately 160,000 people cast a ballot in that presidential election.
160,000?
Approximately 160,000 people cast a ballot.
That was almost 80%
in the city of St. Louis. In the ensuing mayoral race that happened in the city of St. Louis, less than 35,000 people cast a vote. So while I think it's important that we absolutely go out and vote in presidential elections, I think politics is local. All politics are local. It's far more important that when the federal government allocates different resources to be used in your area, the people who you have elected to use those resources in a professional and appropriate manner, if you have elected the wrong person, then you will suffer. And so if we do not take care of our house locally, it's not reasonable to expect our house to be taken care of on a national level. So voting is vital. And not only is it vital, it's even more vital for local elections.
Now, digressing, which I didn't ask this question of you earlier, have you held elected office? Is this your first time running, or what's this?
So I have not held an elected office before. I have run for another office in the past, but this is I'm not an elected official. And people have a few people have teased me, called me a politician, and I like to say, I am not a politician. I am a servant of the people. I feel strongly that of a need to be active in my community and to do my. I'm not doing my part to be more active and do something for the good of my people and mankind. So, yeah.
Okay, then. So how would you define a servant of the people, real quick?
So a servant of the people is trying to assess what the needs of your people are or your community and address those. Do something to address that in a positive manner.
Another issue, going back to the patrols, I know there's been a series of meetings that have been called by the school officials, St. Louis public school officials. Why don't you share with the audience what those meetings have been about?
Sure. So after the press conference, another resident whom I met after she learned about it, Gina Berry, she arranged some meetings with the St. Louis public schools and the police. And she found out that what I was doing with the neighborhood patrols, and she contacted me. So I started attending those meetings with her. And I was, what I learned is that we have a lot of resources to address these needs, but there's lacks a vacuum of leadership to pull these resources so they can all work together. So you have the St. Louis Public Schools and its security force that's working over here. You have St. Louis police officers. They are doing their job over here, and there's little integration between those. And that's one of the things that when we were meeting with public schools and the St. Louis police is trying to be the glue, if you will, to pull these services together so that we can do something meaningful to impact the safety of St. Louis public school children.
And on that note, we'll take one last break. Stay tuned.
What if New Life hadn't been here? What if New Life wouldn't, if the shelter was to close?
I really want to know what I do because everybody else are saying they full or they don't want to take mother and children. So if this place closed, then St. Louis would be a really, really, really bad place.
April 1st is the deadline. Your prayers are absolutely essential, and your tax-deductible gifts. Please send them now. Help save New Life. P.O. Box 473, St. Louis, Missouri.
Welcome back to Conversations with Zaki Baruti, and we're here with Azim Aziz. And Brother Azim, if anybody wanted to contact you as it relates to helping on the patrols and what have you, how would they be able to contact you?
Absolutely. You can go to the website, azimaziz.com. That's AZIMAZIZ.com. That's www.azimaziz.com. Or you can call me at 314-499-4200. That's 314-499-4200. And we would love to hear from you.
Okay, going back to politics, and if you had to make a vote, I'm gonna put you on Front Street, okay? Say in the Democratic primary, which is a crowded field, who would you recommend?
So it is a crowded field, and I actually just left a meeting with Louis Reed just last night. We talked about the direction of the city, and he convinced me of his sincerity and what he's trying to do. So I will be casting a vote for Louis Reed.
Okay then, and as we bring the program to a close, what would be your powerful message to everybody that's listening in terms of the need for involvement or whatever you want to share with our listening, our audience? And you got millions of people listening to you.
I'm not sure how powerful this message is, but you know, I think we have to become involved in things that we care about. One of the things I'm trying to do, I mentioned before that I graduated from Sumner High School. And Sumner High School has a very active, homecoming week where, thousands of Sumner alumni come and gather during this homecoming week. And as I look at all my classmates and people who graduated before and after me, all these thousands of people, I just imagine what percentage of these folks could we get to then go back to Sumner High School and grab a young man or a young woman and mentor them. So, this is a challenge I'm putting out to you Bulldogs, okay? Let's get together.
The Bulldogs.
Bulldogs.
From the Bulldogs, okay.
So let's get together at the next homecoming. But how many of you are going to donate some time to go and mentor a young man or a young woman? So that's the real spirit of Sumner High School. So I'm challenging Sumner High School, but that's across the city, though, Zaki. It's not just Sumner High School Bulldogs. That's something that we need to incorporate in, how we get down as people.
Well, I was just going to add that. We need to put that challenge all across the city, all across the state, all across the nation, because we have some real serious.
We do, but I'm challenging them Bulldogs right now, and they're going to rise to that occasion, Zaki. They will.
Okay, then.
I'm confident.
So on that note, you have been listening to Zaki Baruti, Conversations with Zaki. I'm sure that you have enjoyed the program. I truly have enjoyed you being in studio with me.
Yes, sir.
I want to encourage you to continue doing what you're doing. Tune in next week, Conversations with Zaki Baruti. God bless each and every one of you.